2 shows to do tonight, so I got to get juiced up to talk about this garbage hockey team that I hate right now, which maybe might be, I think is a perfect segue into what we wanted to talk about. So this is going to be probably not so much like we're coming at you with like statistics on a certain thing and trying to prove a point. This is really a vent for Mitch and I. Like I'm going to give all credit to Mitch. He came up with the idea, but I agree with him. He wants to talk about, and we want to talk about, why the 2024-2025 New York Islanders may be the most frustrating team in team history.
Yeah. Because you watch this game today, it's not just a gut reaction to this game. I posted this before the game had even played. It's just when you think about this season, it is so goddamn frustrating to consider where we are in either way you want to look at it, relative to the playoffs or relative to the draft. It doesn't matter. Whatever side of the coin you sit on, wanting to make the playoffs or wanting to draft a high pick, you're frustrated right now. You are. And that's really the essence of, spoiler, I guess, we're 10 minutes in. Bye, everyone. The podcast is just like, no matter what, this season has been frustrating. Whereas when you look at other seasons, they sure as shit may have been frustrating, but it's because we failed on that one singular goal, whatever that was. This has been a constant fuck up. Every goal that we have set out for this year has come crashing down to earth in a flaming heap of garbage, and it just doesn't stop at all, man. The hits keep on coming.
Now, I'm going to say definitely for my fandom, this has been the most frustrating. And maybe you have a different answer at home. Like if you've been here since the beginning, maybe the, mid 70s when they couldn't get over the hump was more frustrating to you. But then eventually they win 4 Stanley Cups in a row and go to 5 in a row. So maybe that eases that frustration, and like 50 years has passed since that time. So maybe it evens out a little bit for you at that point. But for me, since I've been watching this team, not only is it relative to expectations, because there's been years where they stunk. Like the 2009 Islanders were horrible and they got the number 1 overall pick, but no one was going into that season with any hope of them being a good hockey team. Even last year's Islanders, very frustrating. They were blowing leads left and right. They were bad on special teams. They sneak into the playoffs and they exit very quickly. Kind of a similar story the year prior. You had the COVID in 2022. But for me, I think the reason why my answer would be this year, 2025, is the most frustrating team is something that I say in sports a lot. Like just a phrase that I think is very important is there like no half measures, be either all the way in or all the way out. And this team is right in the middle. They are dangling between, because at points they look like, oh my God, this might be a bottom 5 team in the league and they might have a top 5 pick. And then at other points if they win today, they're in a playoff spot. And it feels like when you get to the point where they were this past week and they're right on the cusp, despite everything, you're going, all right, like, can they win this game and put themselves in a playoff spot? And they come up short against Vancouver, or they come up short against who was it? But before that, not Buffalo. Who the hell was it? My brain is mush.
Calgary.
Thank you. Could they do it against Calgary? And then they couldn't. And then you're going the other way of, man, this team really stinks. Like in January, they're really bad, and then they rattle off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wins in a row and get themselves right back in the mix. And then they trade Brock Nelson, but don't trade anyone else. And it's like, what is this team? Are you in or are you out? Like, what is this?
Exactly. It is indeed the half measures, right? That is effectively, and we saw that all year. And I know you and we started up like thinking the playoffs is a real possibility for this team. But I want to put that on the shelf for a second. Sure. I want to talk about half measures, and it's just making me think of like the trade deadline. As you brought up, very much a half measure. You have Brock Nelson that you get quite a decent return for, right?
Yep.
You have Callum Ritchie, a first next year, and a second rounder as well, don't we? I think it was. Did we get another pick for Brock Nelson?
I think it was just a first and Ritchie.
Okay, either way, first and Richie is what we're getting for Brock Nelson. And then you have coveted assets outside of that. You have Jean-Gabriel Pajot that Edmonton desperately wanted for picks, of course, and holding money, which the Islanders were down to do. And maybe I understand it to a certain degree, but only to a certain degree. If you're retaining money, you're just getting better value, is really what you're doing. And then you have Kyle Palmieri that could have got you, as you said in the postgame, at minimum, a second-round pick. And then the 15 million defensemen that we have, we're not playing two of them for reasons. Well, Scott Mayfield, because he's not very good. And then Scott Perunovich, because reasons. Why don't we trade one of those guys? And we didn't, with just a half measure, because you're like, well, we're still in it. We're not still in it. We were technically, but had you taken the full measure, maybe you still would have been in it. Maybe you wouldn't have been in it. Like, what are we doing here, man? Oh, I forgot we picked up Oliver Shillington.
Yeah, so here's the Cal Ritchie, Oliver Shillington, first round pick, and the conditional third round pick for Brock Nelson and William Dafoe.
Good return. We could have got so much for some of the other assets laid out that we just talked about, and we didn't on purpose. It is not that we did not receive calls. It's not that we did not receive valuable packages. It's just what Lou was holding out for more, which is fine if we end up getting more next year. But who the hell knows, man? And that just adds to the frustration of this year, of the half measures as you're bringing up.
And you're getting the quotes from the coach that feel that way too. And maybe this is too reactionary, so forgive me if that's me just being reactionary after a loss. But you lose a game 6-4, where a win and you're still around in the playoff race, and it's like, you know what, the guy, they were down 2-0 and they battled back into the game. They're giving it all they have. I love it, was the quote. I don't want to hear they battled, then I love it in the midst of a 5-game losing streak. Like, that is such loser behavior. I can't stand it.
Yeah, and I get it from you're trying to be like a coach's guy thing, but as I said in the post game, you're on a medium that is for the fans. This is for us to hear from you what you think, and you're sending messages to the players, type of thing. Fine, I suppose, but it's not hitting the intended target, which is us.
Yep.
We're getting this wishy-washy kind of oh, they're playing well. Well, they're not, because they're in a 5-game losing streak, my dude. And they're making some really dumb mistakes consistently that have allowed 6 goals today. And what was it? 7 against the, or 5? 4. No, 5. It was 5 against Tampa, was it not?
Yeah, 5. So over the last 3
11.
games, 6, 5, and 5 goals allowed.
Oh, not okay, man. They're playing well, dude. And I know he says he mentioned that the goalies need to make saves. Sure, but they can't make that many, man. That even you would say they shouldn't be making that many.
No. Yep. And I feel like I'm just sitting here throwing my hands up, being like, I don't know what else we could possibly say. Exactly. And there's 72 games through the season. There's still 10 more games to go. Well, 9 more, I guess. They played Carolina today, so it's 9 more. But still, that's what they've been all year. It's not like, they're only 20 games into this season. They've been very hot and cold. No, they've been hot and cold for 72 of the 82 games this year.
If you like that, make sure to subscribe to Up the Turnpike on Patreon for more exclusive New York Islanders content.